What's going on, guys, and welcome to #AskGSM episode 342 here today, and one of my favorite days of the month, the 17th of June for 2020. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. If you're wondering why the 17th is one of my favorite days of the month, it's quite simple. The number 17 is my favorite number. So there really isn't any more of a reason to it than that. But hope you guys are doing well, like I said. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Drop your question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So, as I said last week, I have no idea why YouTube is doing this. I'm not being notified of many new, comments on these videos. Not only these, but like any of my videos. I don't know why. Unless I go out of my way to manually check the video to see if there's any comments, then I'm not notified. For whatever reason, I don't know. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm notified of new comments on videos I posted 5 years ago, and then a video I posted a week ago, I'm not notified of new comments. I don't know why. That's YouTube messing up for me for whatever reason. But nonetheless, let's get right into it here today first with No Laura from YouTube. I believe that's how you pronounce it. One of the comments that I wasn't notified about until I looked at this, looked at the video this morning from last week. Their question was, or really two questions in one comment. They said, top 3 Eddie Guerrero dream matches in his prime, and top 3 women's wrestlers that you wished WWE pushed. So first for the Eddie question, that's a good question. Top 3 dream Eddie Guerrero matches that we'll never get to say. I have 3. I would say Eddie Guerrero and CM Punk, but I think they had a feud or a couple of matches in Ring of Honor. So technically those matches did happen. I'm saying Punk versus Eddie of like 2011. Punk of 2011 versus Eddie in his prime, that'd be money. But anyway, the top 3 opponents that I would say, and an honorable mention goes to like an Andrade and Angel Garza. I didn't put any luchadors in my top 3 here. People that no, Angel Garza is the next Eddie. He's not the next Eddie. There's a lot of things about him that remind me of Eddie Guerrero. But yeah, Angel and Eddie would be awesome. Andrade and Eddie would be awesome. But my top 3 would be Daniel Bryan. Now, I don't think they ever had a match against each other. I know Bryan, I think, started wrestling in 2000, if not shortly before that. Eddie went to WWE, back to WWE in 2002. So unless they had a match in like some random indie promotion in 2001, I don't think they ever faced off. But Daniel Bryan and Eddie, because Bryan pretty much, mixes well with practically anyone. AJ Styles, another obvious one. I would throw Seth Rollins in there as an honorable mention. I didn't include him in my top 3 here, but Rollins and Eddie would be great too. But number 1 has undoubtedly got to be Shawn Michaels. I think Eddie and Shawn, I've definitely talked about it here on the show before, was rumored at one point, or at least was pitched by a writer, or someone wanted to see it, whatever. Eddie and Shawn for WrestleMania 22 before Eddie died in late 2005. Now, I don't know how accurate those rumors are. I don't know if that's ever been confirmed before, but that's a match that would have been probably on the same level as Shawn and Kurt from the year prior at WrestleMania 21. So I'm surprised we never got to see Shawn and Eddie, but it makes sense because Eddie came into WWE initially in 2000. At that point, actually, no, it doesn't really make sense because, Eddie came in 2000. Shawn was retired at that point. Shawn came back in 2002. When Eddie came back, they both came back to WWE in 2002, but they were always on separate shows. Eddie was on SmackDown, I think, for that entire time up until he died in 2005. Shawn was on Raw. But at the same time, though, so was Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was always on SmackDown. Kurt and Shawn had a match at WrestleMania. So it could have happened, and it probably would have happened. There's a good chance it could have happened at WrestleMania 22. Unfortunately, it didn't. But that, to me, would be my top dream match of Eddie Guerrero's involving Shawn Michaels. For the women, I don't know if you mean like of all time or like currently. I just went by currently for women I wish WWE would push. I picked one woman from Raw, one woman from SmackDown, and one woman from NXT. So from Raw, I picked Belair. Bianca Belair is great. She's by no means perfect, but she has a certain charisma about her. She's very good. Considering that she's not been wrestling for all that long, it seems like she just has it. Has it. that it factor, She just has it down pat, but they're not doing anything with her right now. We've had 2 pay-per-views pass. She has not been on the show in at least 2 months. At least. She first debuted back in April with the Street Profits. She was with them for a little while, and then they just dropped her from the act out of nowhere, so I don't know what that's about. But Belair is someone they got to focus more on Raw. Sheena, too. I feel like Sheena's got, she was involved in a Raw Women's Championship match at WrestleMania. She won an Elimination Chamber main event. She was in the last 2 of the Royal Rumble. I want them to push her as the Raw Women's Champion, but I assume that doesn't come for a little while. Unfortunately, she, too, has not been on the show for at least a month now, if not more than that. But I think Belair has really got the... she got a bad hand in that, she really has not been featured on Raw at all in the time that she was called up. In the last 2 months since she got called up, she's been on Raw maybe 2 or 3 times. And that was back in April. I don't think we've seen her since. I know she's been on Main Event, but that hardly matters. Ruby Riott, too, would be an honorable mention. From SmackDown, I picked Sonya. Now, I know she is kind of being pushed right now. She beat, Mandy in their first match. I think they're on Miz TV on Friday. I thought they were having a match. Thankfully, no. I'm surprised they didn't do it at Backlash, but they could very well, hopefully, be saving it for the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. Sonya and Mandy for that pay-per-view. So, that would be an idea. Sonya's someone I feel like they really should put the championship on at some point. I know Bayley's doing her thing and whatever, but Sonya's great. She's really impressed me in the last couple of months. And then from NXT, I don't know what her deal is, but Mercedes Martinez, she has not been on the show since the whole pandemic started, and maybe that's why. I know she's from Connecticut. I don't know if she lives in Connecticut or elsewhere. She might live outside the country. I don't know. I'm not really sure, because otherwise, why wouldn't she be on the show at all in the last couple of months? We've seen practically everyone else. We don't see her in the crowd. I feel like she's in quarantine somewhere. Maybe she just chose to stay home. I don't know. But she has not been on the show at all since this whole thing started. I think she was actually supposed to face, in that first episode of NXT after the whole COVID thing started, she was supposed to face Candice in a qualifying match for the ladder match of the supposed takeover that never ended up happening over WrestleMania weekend. That match got nixed. The whole show got nixed in favor of like the video package themed episode. But anyway, so we haven't seen her since then. Hopefully she comes back soon, and when she does, hopefully they push her because she's very, very good. Let's see. Next question from @Colin_McAndrew from Twitter. He sent this in last Thursday when the news first broke. Thoughts on Raw and SmackDown consolidating the writing teams. Now, I'll go into more detail about this tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio with RJ because I have a lot to say about this. I am not a fan. I really am not. I'm not a fan of Raw and SmackDown consolidating the writing teams. I'm not a fan of Bruce Pritchard writing both Raw and SmackDown. Pritchard, if the guy's been writing SmackDown now since they moved to Fox, then we're fucked. Because SmackDown has, by and large, sucked. Up until recently, the build to Backlash was well done, I thought. Other than that, the last 8 months of the show have been fucking downright deplorable. This is the worst I've seen SmackDown probably since the Jinder Mahal era, back in the summer of 2017. And even then, there were more things to like about SmackDown than there has been recently. Now again, the build to Backlash I thought was good, but not everything was amazing. That Hardy Sheamus urine shit was completely terrible. It was absolutely awful. Did nothing to make me want to see them face off at Backlash, which ended up being a pretty good match. But anyway, I think it helps to have variety, unless this is a cost-cutting measure, where they have to cut members of the writing team and they have to relieve Paul Heyman of his writing duties. I'm not going to say because they can't afford to pay him, because they absolutely can. Because, as many other people have pointed out, since this whole pandemic started a couple of months ago, WWE, I think, is the only organization who have made major cuts. Now, I know, other companies have made cuts, like restaurants and shit, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, these cuts are justifiable because everyone's going to have to make a round of releases at some point. But no, that was not the case at all. Impact, by all accounts, paid their employees for shows they never even did. Ring of Honor, same thing. New Japan, same thing. NWA could be folding at some point, but they never fired anyone, as far as we know. So WWE, AEW as well, made no cuts, as far as we know. So WWE, interestingly enough, was the biggest corporation of them all. They had more money than anyone else. yet they're the ones that are laying off all these people for practically no reason. Yeah, the furloughs are one thing. Like, there's no real reason to employ all these producers. And, I mean, I guess you could afford to pay them too, but, why continue paying them if they're not going to be around? I kind of get that. I know, the same thing can be said about other organizations. They're not around. Why pay them? But they are, which is good. The furloughs, I kind of get. The releases make no sense. When no other company, that I think about it 2 months later, there's no real reason to make as many releases as they did if no other company made any sort of sacrifices when they probably could have, when considering that they're smaller companies. But WWE did for absolutely no reason. So that was really just an excuse to let people go because they didn't need them anymore, in my opinion. A lot of those people they should have cut a while ago anyway when they originally asked for their releases. But people like Drake Maverick, who ended up getting a new contract, but why cut him? For no reason. I know they weren't doing anything with the guy, but there was no reason to cut him in the first place. He's a very valuable asset in many ways as a manager, as a talker, as a wrestler, as an authority figure, as a comedy figure, a comedic relief figure, whatever. But back to your question about the writing teams, I fucking hate it because if you really want the brand split to matter, you gotta have each show have a separate flavor, have its own flavor. They won't have their own flavor if they're being written by the same guy. Now, I know Vince oversees everything, and nothing will truly change until Vince is out of power. I realize that. But it was a mere year ago, almost exactly, from the 27th of this month, a year ago, that WWE announced, Eric Bischoff will be writing SmackDown, and Paul Heyman will be heading Raw, blah, blah, blah. And then Eric Bischoff was gone within months, because he had no real knowledge of the product. So, I mean, I kind of got that, but even still, why, tout this big move as, having him be in charge of creative for SmackDown only to fire him months later? That made no sense. The Heyman thing, I think Heyman, by and large, has done pretty well by Raw. Now, it's not a great show by any means, but in my opinion, it has been far more bearable the last year than it has been in recent years, in my opinion. I thought the draft, the execution of the draft wasn't the greatest, but they made an effort to give each show its own roster. I appreciated that. It's just, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I really don't see what this solves. Bruce Pritchard, again, hasn't had a great track record at writing SmackDown the last 8 months, so I don't really see what putting him in charge of Raw as well will really change. The shows may stay the same, they may get worse, they may get better, but the fact of the matter is this: as long as Vince is in charge, nothing will ever truly change. The issue is that Paul Heyman, I thought, was doing a good job of writing Raw, but with no crowds, it's kind of hard to figure out what works and what doesn't. And with the ratings only going down, because who the fuck wants to watch wrestling without crowds? I mean, I will. Most people won't, though. The decline in ratings makes absolute sense. For anyone, claiming, everyone's home, why wouldn't they be watching wrestling, blah, blah, blah. What fucking planet are you living on, dude? Who the fuck wants to watch a wrestling show? CM Punk said it himself. Who the fuck wants to watch a wrestling show that's lacking the one component that makes the show so fun? The fans. Again, I don't love the shows without fans. I think AEW and WWE are doing the best that they can without the fans, but it's not the same. If I wasn't reviewing the shows, I would be a lot less, I'm not excited as it is, but depends on the week, depends on the show, whatever. I would be a lot less inclined, I'll say, to watch the shows than I am currently. I would not be watching fucking Dark for 90 minutes, which is a complete fucking joke. Why do they film 90 minutes of Dark with only squash matches? It's great they're giving indie guys, a payday, whatever. That's wonderful. You shouldn't have 11 squash matches in 90 minutes that mean absolutely nothing. That to me is a joke. Even Superstars back in the day, as far as I know, was not 90 minutes long. That's a fucking joke. Anyway, I'm not a fan. I'll talk more in detail about it tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio. Check out that rant. But for now, though, I am not a fan. At Time Bomb Zone from Twitter, thoughts on WWE's no mask policy during a pandemic. That was the other talking point this week, that there was a rumor going around. I don't know if this was ever confirmed, because I know someone asked the company about it, and they kind of gave a roundabout answer. They never really said we're not. I read the statement from the company, and it didn't really say that we are, ensuring that the fans or the wrestlers, whatever, don't wear masks. I guess there was a source that said that someone told them in the company, If you want to wear a mask, then just stay home, which is fucking dumb. Listen, I'm not a big mask guy myself. I get it. But at the same time, though, if someone in that crowd, one of the wrestlers, one of the 10 fans they brought in, family members, whoever the hell those people were on Raw this week in the back of the arena, if they want to wear a mask, then so fucking be it. I don't care if everyone's tested or not. I mean, yeah, I know they're tested, but the issue is that before the past day or two, they weren't being tested for COVID. They were merely getting their temperatures checked. Now, I think AEW, the funny thing about AEW is that they are testing their performers, I believe, every single time they tape TV for COVID. They're actually doing the COVID testing. Yet some of them still wear masks in the crowd anyway, which honestly, if that's what makes you feel safe, then that's completely fine. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, take off the mask. Like, if they want to wear it for their own safety, even though they know that the people around them don't have it probably, because no test is 100%. There could be false negatives. You never know. Then so be it. If WWE's mindset is, we're not going to allow these people to wear masks because it looks tacky on TV, then fuck you. Because that's not always the most important thing. I saw a video from backstage at WWE. I don't know what video it was, or I don't know where it was from, but it was a couple of days ago they put up the video. It was either them or the WWE PC YouTube channel. They put up a video from backstage at one of the shows, and people were wearing masks. I think it was like an Edge video, like he was arriving at Backlash or something, or something like that. They showed Michael P.S. Hayes, they showed Edge. A lot of the people backstage were wearing masks. So it's not that, I don't know what the quote was from, whether they're referring to people wearing masks on TV or backstage. If it makes you feel safe, then who the fuck cares? Who gives a shit? It looks tacky as it is to have the fucking plexiglass there. To have the fans wearing masks, not the fans, but like the wrestlers, who cares? If they want to, that is, then go ahead. If they don't want to, I think that's fine too. If they're already testing them anyway, then I see no issue with it. I mean, they can't all wear masks. I mean, if they're supposed to be fans, then you won't really hear them too well. I mean, AEW, not all of them wear masks, which I appreciate. Some of them do, most of them don't. That makes sense to me. If the idea is it looks bad on TV, I think that's fucking dumb. They have way worse issues right now that they should be addressing than people wearing masks in their audience. I mean, who cares? If that bothers you, then who fucking cares, honestly? I mean, that's just stupid. To tell people, oh, if you're wearing a mask, you might as well not be here, that's not a good mindset to have. Assuming that's true. That was merely a rumor, I think. At Time Bomb Zone's second question, what does Jeff Hardy do after his feud with Sheamus? I've said this before, but I think Hardy and Styles could have a great feud now that we know Styles is indeed the new Intercontinental Champion. Hardy and Styles would be a great match at some point over that Intercontinental title. I want to see Hardy back in the World Title mix at some point, and I think that could happen now on SmackDown, now that SmackDown doesn't really have a lot of top-tier main event players. I think Strowman and Sheamus would make more sense, just because it's a heel and face dynamic. It's a match we've never seen before. Hardy and Strowman would make sense too, maybe. Not as much sense, because it's face and face, kind of a weird matchup, But I do want to see Hardy, when Strowman eventually loses the title to another heel, like maybe The Fiend again. The Fiend versus a painted up Jeff Hardy, I think could be really cool. The match may not be amazing, but it could be a cool visual if nothing else. A lot like the Demon versus The Fiend. I think that would be cool too at some point, but we're probably not getting that anytime soon. But with Hardy and Sheamus though, I assume they have one more match at Extreme Rules. They are tied 1-1 apiece. Hardy beat Sheamus in the Intercontinental title tournament, and Sheamus beat Hardy at Backlash on Sunday. So I assume Hardy gets his win back at Extreme Rules, and maybe faces AJ for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam. That would be my guess. Let's see. Their next question. Do you see Phantasma / Santos Escobar holding the Cruiserweight Championship until Jordan Devlin comes back? He should. I mean, it's a heel versus heel thing, because Devlin's heel, Escobar's heel. I think it'd be a great match. Phantasma versus, or Escobar rather, versus Devlin at some point. I mean, I guess they could put the belt on Maverick, maybe. If they have Maverick continue to chase, he eventually beats Escobar for the belt. I think it'd be way too soon. Escobar literally just won the championship 2 weeks ago. He had the big reveal, unmasked, he has the heel stable. He should be the champion for a while, because other than maybe Drake, who is very good, has the story going for him, blah, 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 no one else in that division comes anywhere close to being on the level of Escobar right now in terms of momentum, buzz, whatever. I know there's not a lot of fanfare just because there's no fans there to react to the whole title change and the heel turn, blah, blah, blah. But I fucking loved what they did with Escobar on NXT last week. To throw that away by putting the belt on Maverick, which would be cool, don't get me wrong, just to have Maverick and Devlin, which you know Devlin would probably win, I think would be a mistake. Now, it depends on when Devlin's coming back. I don't know when the whole, when quarantine, travel ban is over. I've heard none of that, and it's been over 3 months. Hopefully soon, but there's no guarantees. So, yeah, I do see them holding or keeping the belt on Phantasma, Escobar, or whatever, until Devlin comes back. And they'll probably do that as a title unification match, like a Shawn and Razor from WrestleMania 10 all over again. Maybe even at the TakeOver show in Dublin. They still hold it. I don't know if they will, but it was originally scheduled for April. Then it got bumped to October. So maybe that's where they do it. Maybe they do Escobar and Devlin on that show. And I would have Escobar lose. I mean, I think Devlin, I don't know, actually. I'm not really sure. Because Devlin, actually, you know what? In that respect, I said earlier the heel versus heel thing wouldn't really work. But the thing is, though, is that if you do the match on that show, Devlin will be cheered. Because the guy is from Ireland, obviously, so he's going to be cheered. So it makes sense. Honestly, I take back what I said. I do want to see Escobar hold the championship until Devlin comes back. Do the match on that show. I don't know who I would have win, though. Because Devlin never really got a real run with it. He had a couple of good matches with Tyler Breeze and Leo Rush and a few others before he, was obviously, had to be taken off TV due to the current circumstances. But Escobar is just killing it right now. I think the whole heel turn, unless he cools down in the next couple of months, I would probably keep the belt on Escobar personally. At noob_n_code 1991, what are your thoughts on Charlotte Flair calling Sasha Banks and Nia Jax entitled? Do you think she's right or wrong? Yeah, so she called Banks and Nia entitled on Raw Talk, which I talked all about yesterday, actually, here on the channel, if you want to check it out. So, I mean, obviously she's speaking in character, because why the fuck would she call out Sasha and Nia on a WWE show in a promo? Like, that makes no sense. Charlotte's not that type of person. It's all storyline-driven stuff, so if we're talking storyline here, no, I mean, I could see what Charlotte is saying. She was merely responding to people calling her entitled to always being in the title picture, which, from a realistic standpoint, out of storyline, is not her fault. She's not saying, oh, put me in the title picture. I mean, maybe she is. I don't know. I doubt it. But that's not her fault. It's how they book her. They need to put her in a compelling feud that isn't over a championship. I said that yesterday in Raw Talk. I'll say it again here. I said it on Wrestle Rant Radio last week with RJ. There is no need to have Charlotte in the title picture 24/7 to make her feel special or keep her special or whatever. She can have feuds that aren't over a fucking title. When they have as many women as they do, they could always have her feud with Belair or Baszler or someone else on that show that isn't the Raw Women's Champion, in my opinion. So no, I don't think Sasha and Nia are entitled. Again, she was responding to people calling her entitled, saying that, no, Sasha and Nia are entitled because they're gone for so long. Sasha walked out, Nia got hurt, and then they come back and get title shots. I don't think that's entitled. There might be another word for that. It ain't entitled in my opinion, but I could see what she means. She made a lot of great points. It was a great promo. If we could see more of that Charlotte on Raw, then I think people may not be as sick of her as we currently are. Because a lot of the promos that we hear from her on Raw, on NXT, as the queen of the women's division, blah, 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 are so fucking repetitive. But if she incorporated more aggression into her promos, more passion, I feel, then it might be a bit more bearable. In the ring, she's amazing. The promos need work. And I think if we could see more stuff like this on the show, she's golden. At RJ_Marceau, Mr. Marceau's first question was, how big of a mistake did Ring of Honor make by focusing the whole company around the Elite, only for them to leave for AEW? I have said this since the moment they left, that Ring of Honor fucked up by focusing, as RJ said, the entire company around the Elite for as long as they did, by putting all of their eggs in the Elite basket, because, yeah, they were big stars in Ring of Honor. Locking them down is one thing. People like Cody, Paige, the Bucks, bringing in Omega, who wasn't there a lot. It was really all about Cody, Paige, and the Bucks. Omega wasn't really there. Marty as well, who obviously is still there. But when all of those people left, except for Marty, it left a very big void in Ring of Honor's roster. Now, I do applaud them for trying to replenish the pot over the last year by trying to bring in new people like Jeff Cobb, Roosh, Tracy Williams, PCO, Joe Hendry, among others. But they are not the stars that Cody, the Bucks, and Paige were. They literally focused their entire product around those guys for as long as they did. Now, Ring of Honor has, it has a tendency to do that type of thing with people like Adam Cole and Jay Lethal, Austin Aries, I'm trying to think of other people, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish. Like, for example, Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly all left Ring of Honor in 2017, in addition to Dominik Dijakovic, then known as Dominik Dijakovic, or what was it? What was his original name? Donovan Dijak was his original name. And Leo Rush. They all left ROH in 2017. Yet the product was still fucking great. In addition to not only the Elite, but SCU as well. They were very popular for as long as they were in Ring of Honor for. But again, the issue was that even after those guys left, at least Ring of Honor still had Cody. They had a number of other stars. Jay Lethal's still there. Jay Briscoe's still there. It's not that they have a bad roster, but they put the entire company's focus on the Bullet Club for like as long as they were together. I would say from like 2015 through 2017. Like even when AJ left Ring of Honor, the product was still white hot. Even after AJ left for WWE. I mean, granted, AJ was more active in New Japan than he was in Ring of Honor, but he was still very much prominent on their programming for about a year or two before he went to WWE. The company didn't really suffer all that much because they still had up-and-coming guys. They had Cody be brought in. Cole was killing it. I really feel like it was an Elite issue because the company, they called their fucking streaming service Honor Club after the Bullet Club. They branded the entire service around the Bullet Club with the black and the white and everything else. The Bucks were a big part of Ring of Honor. They held the tag titles a few times. They were in a lot of the tag title matches. They were as big of a stars there. They were probably among the biggest stars that Ring of Honor has had ever. And Jay Lethal is great. Like I said, Dalton Castle's another one. He's very good. They are not on the level of the Elite, of the Bucks, Paige, Skrull, and Cody. Now, Skrull stayed around. He stuck around. But they've done nothing with the guy. Now, I know he's the head booker now. He's the head booker now. Good for him. But you had the opportunity to run with Skrull as the face of Ring of Honor, as the world champion, and they never did. Of all the guys to focus on, Skrull was the one guy that, to me, they constantly kind of overlooked. Now, he was the TV champion for a while, a couple of years ago. But he could have been the world champion a year or two ago when his stock was at its highest and they kept dropping the ball. He should have won that ladder match at G1 Supercard last year, not Matt Taven. That was really when things started to decline for Ring of Honor. And thankfully, they've gotten their shit back on track for the most part. They haven't run shows since March due to the current circumstances. But prior to that point, since the beginning of 2020, they were doing some really good shows. And I applaud them for that. So anyway, they made a big mistake by putting all their eggs in the Elite basket for as long as they did, because they never really created any new stars. Again, they have Lethal, they have Castle, they have a few other people. They've brought in other people like Roosh and PCO, both of whom have won the Ring of Honor World Championship. But the company has lost a lot of buzz, I feel, from where it was a couple of years ago when they had the Bullet Club and the Elite under contract. His second question: what is AEW doing with MJF? He's undefeated and seems to be directionless right now. I have no idea. It feels like they're biding their time until they put MJF in the world title picture. He mentioned something about the World Championship months ago, saying, hey, Moxley, I'm coming after you, like right after Revolution. And then he disappeared from TV due to the COVID quarantine situation. He resurfaced about a month or two ago. Yeah, he beat Jungle Boy Double or Nothing, which was good, but he really lacks direction. Again, probably because they're setting him up to face Moxley. I would assume it All Out. I mean, again, they're really focusing right now on Jon Moxley and Brian Cage, which is great for Fyter Fest, but they should also be building up MJF at the same time. Yes, he's undefeated. It makes no sense, in my opinion. I mean, again, I know Cage won a number one contenders match, and Cage is great, and I am looking forward to Cage and Moxley. Cage and Moxley, the Fyter Fest show next month. But Cage has, one or two wins under his belt? MJF has a bunch, and he has yet to get any real title shot of any kind. That, to me, doesn't really make a lot of sense. That's why the whole power ranking shit should be done away with because they're not doing it really properly. Why the fuck are Jericho and Sammy Guevara getting a shot at the #1 contendership tonight on Dynamite? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. Yeah, I know they're feuding with the best friends right now, but Jericho and Guevara haven't teamed in a while. I think they teamed a couple of months ago, but they're not like #2 in the tag team rankings, you know? Why are the fucking Natural Nightmares getting a title shot tonight on Dynamite? That is also insanely stupid in my opinion. They've beaten nothing but jobbers on Dark. How the hell does that qualify them for a title shot against Omega and Page tonight on the show? Does that make Best Friends the #3 contenders? Because the Natural Nightmares are getting a title shot tonight, and Jimmy Havoc and Kip Sabian got a title shot a couple of weeks ago. So again, how are Best Friends the #1 contenders if their title shots are being given to other people, even though they're getting their title shot in a couple weeks? But anyway, back to your original question about MJF. I think they know that they want to do Moxley and MJF at some point, which can be very good on a promo, especially on a from a mic talking promo standpoint. That could be a great feud. But there is no excuse to not have him have like an interim feud in the meantime. With someone else like, Jungle Boy is good, but he's already beaten Jungle Boy like 3 times. I'm trying to think of who else they have. Like, I don't know if Colt Cabana is the answer. They're already doing their thing with him. But they need to find another mid-card babyface they could have him feud with in the meantime, the face of Fyter Fest, before he likely faces Moxley at the All Out show for the World Championship. Let's see. At Iwagu91, their question was, do you think FTR versus the Young Bucks will ensue at All Out? I do. And it should. They shouldn't give it away at Fyter Fest. If anything, they can have them team up maybe in an 8-man tag team match. I would have no issue with that. That's an idea. They could be saving FTR and the Young Bucks for even later than that. I don't know if I would save it for the November pay-per-view. That might be a little long, considering that the build started right after Double or Nothing, like literally the episode of Dynamite right after the pay-per-view. But, they could be saving for All Out instead of FTR and Bucks. It could be FTR, Young Bucks, and Page and Omega for the tag titles in a triple threat, which could be amazing. Especially if that Young Bucks, Page, and Omega match at, Revolution a couple of months ago was any indication of how well they work together. That could be phenomenal. But anyway, I think All Out is where the match will happen. That's where it should happen. No earlier than that. The build has been well done so far. They're kind of easing into it, which I like. And I don't know who's going to win. I have no clue. Probably FTR. You got to have the new team go over. The Bucks are established. They're fine. I would personally have FTR win. But yeah, no earlier than that. At E13A's got a couple of questions here. First one being, apparently Edge versus Randy Orton was supposed to be at SummerSlam until Vince decided on a whim to move it to Backlash and use the greatest wrestling match ever, trademark, tagline. Do you think there was an ulterior motive to the tagline, or was it simply a marketing tactic? I heard SummerSlam, but I also heard Saudi Arabia, which makes a lot of sense. I heard someone say, it might have been Solomonster, that WWE was planning to do another Saudi show by now, which I don't believe. They just did one in February. They probably wouldn't have done the other one until like November, October, whatever. I don't think they would have done it in June. I know they had one in June last year, but they already did one in February, like literally 4 months ago, so I don't believe that. But it sounds like a Saudi thing. It really does. Like they had the greatest Royal Rumble a couple of years ago. One of the worst Royal Rumbles I've ever seen, personally. I don't know about the greatest, but one of the worst, maybe. One of the worst, maybe. Definitely not the greatest. The Saudi tagline makes sense. I just didn't see them having another Saudi show anytime soon. So yeah, SummerSlam makes sense. Because it's right around the corner. Backlash felt like a weird time to do the match. And I guess the reason for why they did it at Backlash and not at SummerSlam was because Backlash was lacking star power. With Roman gone, Becky gone, Brock not around, they were kind of lacking star power. The main event probably would have been McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, which they've had a good feud, they had a good match, but that pay-per-view, without Edge and Orton, would have been a lot worse without that main event, which was great. Easily, in my opinion, the match of the night. So, I can believe that. I can believe the Edge and Orton rematch being saved for SummerSlam. I kind of figured that after WrestleMania. I know Edge beat Orton, but I was kind of thinking they might continue it just because the story was so good, and I thought we would get a rematch at SummerSlam, but Backlash was fine too, and it really made that show. Because the undercard, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't one of the worst shows I've ever seen. But that show would have looked a lot worse on paper had it not featured Edge and Orton in the main event. At E13A's, second question. WWE appears to be using cinematic matches more frequently since WrestleMania. Do you think they'll continue to be more common after 2020? I don't. I think we could see more of them in the future than we have in the past. I mean, they could do it once in a while. They did Final Deletion, or Ultimate Deletion, whatever, a couple of years ago with Matt Hardy. Other than that, I can't think of any cinematic matches they've done in WWE over the last number of years. They could do one once in a while. I've said this before, though. They can't do AEW, too. They can't do a cinematic match as the main event of their biggest show of the year. For example, they couldn't do Taker and Sting in a cinematic match at WrestleMania 2020, at WrestleMania 37. You pay all that money, I'm not going to sit in my fucking $300 seat to watch a Titantron for 20 minutes. The match might be amazing, but I don't want to see it happen at WrestleMania. Maybe on a Raw segment, maybe. But again, if you have live crowds, you're asking those people to sit there and watch it on a screen for not 5 minutes or whatever like we see with interviews, for 20 minutes. That might be too much. So, again, less is more. I like the Money in the Bank stuff, but if they have it become an annual thing, it's not as special. I thought the Street Profits Viking Raiders garbage was fucking terrible. Easily the worst thing I've seen on any show in WWE in quite some time. It was really bad. I'll talk about that later. But I thought all the other cinematic stuff that AEW has done, WWE has done, have been really good. So, I don't know. I mean, yeah, they might become more common, but they won't be nearly as frequent as they have been over the last couple of months since WrestleMania, as you said. His third question, seeing as we are 9 months in the USA Network era of NXT, what do you make of the show and its current vibe? Do you think NXT has become any significantly different since then? And has it adapted well to the 2-hour cable TV format? That's a good question. I enjoy NXT. I think the show is better when it first moved to USA. A lot of people were worried, it's going to kill the show's going to suck. It's not a bad show. NXT is not a bad show. I still enjoy NXT most weeks. There's weeks where not much of note happens. I mean, the same thing can be said for Dynamite. I will say, though, at least recently, if I had to choose, I do enjoy Dynamite more than NXT most weeks. I do try to switch off in terms of which show I watch first. Usually I'll watch Dynamite, then NXT. Dynamite, NXT. I'm sorry, Dynamite, each week. If I watch NXT 2 weeks in a row, I'll just Dynamite first 2 weeks in a row. That's kind of how I try to format it to be fair, depending also what's on being advertised as well. But NXT's been a good show. It's still not, I don't think it's their best show. Actually, it might be. If Raw, most weeks is good. It's not great. Dynamite, I'm sorry, not Dynamite. SmackDown has been deplorable for the better part of the Fox era. It's been good lately. It's probably been better than NXT most weeks. Not last week, but, NXT overall is still a very enjoyable show. In terms of how it was compared to a year ago, the 2 hours, I don't care what anyone says. I will say that the hour format was easy to digest and whatever, but with the roster that they've had, they needed to move to 2 hours. They needed to. You can't further storylines and build, on TV, on USA Network, the ratings might be better if it was an hour, before Dynamite or something. But with the roster that they have with the women, the men, there's no way that you can continue to feature as many people as they do on a 1 hour format. That's just not going to happen. There's weeks even now where we don't see people every week, and I like that. They structure it very well. I don't like the tape shows, the NXT tape shows that we got originally for so many years. I hated fucking being spoiled all the time on Twitter, on WWE.com. And I don't go out of my way to read spoilers. I'll see people tweet about it on my timeline. Word gets out. If a title changes on NXT, then you would have heard about it almost immediately. And I hated that. So I like the fact that the shows are live. I mean, not right now, but that's for a different reason. I like the fact that the shows are live. They have a good roster. Most of the storylines are pretty good. Takeovers are still very good. Portland was great. The In Your House show, despite having no real fans, was very good. The War Games show was great. So the product hasn't really suffered as much as people thought it would. Hopefully the rumor of Vince overhauling NXT because the ratings have been low are false. The ratings have been disappointing. I mean, Dynamite too. That both shows, the ratings have been disappointing. I mean, even before the current circumstances kicked in, NXT wasn't really killing it in the ratings. They beat Dynamite maybe once or twice late last year. That's about it. Other than that, the ratings were not doing as well as they probably would have hoped. I mean, I wouldn't have the two shows go head-to-head. I thought that was really stupid to have them go head-to-head in the first place. Not just from a fan standpoint of having to watch two shows back-to-back. It makes for a great, Wednesday night. But if they were, not back-to-back, but head-to-head, I would rather they have, one show at one time, the other show at the other time. It would help both products immensely, and competition is great. I mean, it doesn't kill them to be going head-to-head. And it wasn't really Dynamite's fault either, because they were always going to be going to Wednesdays. But NXT at that point was on the network at 8, and then people could always watch NXT afterward. But now that it's 2 hours live on Wednesdays, they clearly did that as a way to go head-to-head with Dynamite. So anyway, I enjoy the show. NXT is still a very good show. People pooping on it, I don't get. I really don't. Is Dynamite better most weeks? It's debatable, but I would agree. Most weeks it has been better, but there are stretches of time where Dynamite is just eh. NXT, same thing. I thought last week both shows were good, but they weren't overly amazing. They were just kind of there. Dynamite, I will say, has kind of found its footing since right before the whole COVID thing hit. Right before COVID hit, they were really putting together a string of great shows going into Revolution and coming out of Revolution too. And even during the empty arena era, they've put on some pretty good shows. NXT, I feel like these shows are more dependent on the fans than AEW is, which is why the show's kind of suffered. But putting that aside, the show overall since September, since they moved to USA for 2 hours, has been, again, very good, and I can't complain. Maybe not as good as it was like a year ago. I mean, I would really have to go back and watch the shows, but it's not like, oh man, it's so much worse than it was a year ago. It's definitely debatable, I will say that. At Reborn Again, John Ritlin from the YouTube machine and Twitter machine. Check out his YouTube show, Real Honesty with John Ritlin. Always great stuff. His first question was, Ninjas at Backlash and on Raw this week. Why? Yeah, I agree. That's what I was asking myself too. Why? Why? So fucking dumb. Less said about that, the better, but it was so bad. I mean, I've enjoyed the cinematic stuff. I don't think they went overboard with it, because I like the Money in the Bank match. I like the WrestleMania stuff. They've done a good job with it. But the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits garbage, literal garbage that we saw on Raw this week, on Raw too, but Backlash specifically, was really bad. It was really bad. So, yeah, less said about that garbage, the better. John's second question, in your personal opinion, would you say that Kenny Omega is one of the 10 or even 5 best wrestlers in the world today? That's a good question. It's so subjective, and I'm not even really sure who else would be on that list. I would say AJ, people might argue, he's not the same as he was, 5 years ago, which is true, but he's still great. So I would put AJ up there. Okada, obviously. I would put, do you include Jericho? Because as a character, he's as hot now as he's ever been. In the ring, he's not what he was 5-10 years ago, but he's still very good. So I don't know. It's really subjective as far as what you would include, like a wrestler. You said wrestlers, not superstars or promos or overall packages, whatever. You said wrestlers. So, yeah, I would include Omega in there. Maybe not 5, probably top 10. I would put him in there. I don't really watch much New Japan, so it's hard to say. I know Okada obviously would be up there, if not number 1. I'm not sure who else you would put up there from New Japan. That I'm maybe Ibushi, Naito, probably Will Ospreay, I would have to imagine. Rollins is still great in the ring. The guy still does amazing work. So I would put Rollins on that list. I would put Daniel Bryan up there, obviously. AJ as well. From WWE. Johnny Gargano as well. From other companies, again, from AEW, Omega would probably be top 10. Okada would be up there. Trying to think of people from Ring of Honor. I really like Jay Lethal. I don't know if he'd be in the top 10, but he'd be in my at least 15, if not top 10. It's tough, but for Omega, probably Pac too. But for Omega, yeah, I think I'd put him in my top 10. It's subjective. You may not agree, and that's fine, but I think he would be in, maybe not 5, but definitely top 10, if not a number 10 or 9 or whatever. His third question here, non-wrestling related, but what do you think, rather, about movie theaters opening back up starting in July. Do you think they'll be able to overcome the losses from the closures from the last 3+ months, or will they fade out sooner rather than later? That's a good question. I mean, we've talked about this before. I'm glad they're reopening, and the thing is, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I had no desire to go to the movies because I don't feel safe. Now, I don't know if I would have gone on day one. The issue, and I hate that I'm even saying this, that a local movie theater of mine is reopening on July 3rd. I may very well go that first day back. I know that sounds dumb, but I feel like they wouldn't be opening if they didn't feel that it was safe. So the reason I'm going, the reason I probably wouldn't have gone on day one is because there aren't a lot of movies out right now, or coming out, that interest me. I don't need to go see The Hunt or Invisible Man again, which I enjoyed, but I don't know if I would see it again. But they are releasing old movies in the movie theaters, at least the ones around here. I saw Space Jam was playing, The Matrix, fucking Mean Girls was out, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, my top 2 favorite movies ever. You throw an Endgame, I'll go to the movies all day and rewatch my top 3 favorite movies of all time. Ghostbusters, Endgame, and Back to the Future, right there. I mean, I could spend a whole day there watching those 3 movies alone. And hopefully at some point they will re-release Endgame in theaters, because I would love to see it for a fucking 7th time in theaters, or 6th time, or whatever the hell it is. I think it's 6. Anyway, so yeah, I saw Back to the Future was playing on July 3rd around here, which just so happens to be the 35-year anniversary of the movie. So how can I pass that up? I did see Back to the Future in theaters 5 years ago on Back to the Future Day, up near my school. They were playing 1, 2, and 3. I only caught 1 and 2. I didn't stay for 3, but that was pretty cool. Anyway, though, with the movie theaters, I mean, not everyone's going to recover. The major theaters maybe, but even AMC has said they may have to file for bankruptcy. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work. I don't know. Because even when they do reopen, people are still going to feel afraid to go to the movies and go out to public places. There are people like that, and I totally get it. So it's going to be tough. It's hard to say right now. Will they increase movie prices? Whatever. Maybe. I saw that they released, I don't know if it was ever supposed to go to theaters anyway, that Pete Davidson movie, The King of Staten Island or whatever it's called, like on demand for like $20. No thanks. $20 for a movie? I mean, I spend fucking $5 on a Tuesday at the movie theater. I know, like, if you include food and shit, it comes out to maybe $20. But still, I think that's a lot of money. Unless I'm buying it, maybe, but even then, no thanks. If I don't know if it's going to be good, I don't know if I would pay more than $15 on a Friday night in IMAX. And, people, it's cool to watch movies, excuse me. It's cool to watch movies at home. It's not the same experience, though, as going to a theater and seeing it on the big screen. Watching it at home just ain't the same, although it is convenient. So, yeah, some may be able to overcome the losses. Others may not be able to. So time will tell. I think they will, but it's hard to say because some local theaters that are independently owned may not make it. So we'll see. We won't really know until next month, though, when they reopen again in the areas. At Scarlet1 from Twitter, their first question was, best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars number 35 from last week. Like I said earlier, the shows last week were all right. I'm kind of stretching when I say the best, but I thought the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy match against Jake Hager, Santana, and Ortiz was very good from Dynamite. I liked the FTR versus Butcher and Blade match. That was good. The Moxley and Cage brawl in the parking lot was well done. From NXT, I liked the mixed tag team match with Johnny Gargano and Candice versus Keith Lee and Mia Yim. The Candice LeRae match was the Candice LeRae, Johnny Gargano, Keith Lee, Mia Yim mixed tag team match was very good. The Finn Balor, Cameron Grimes match was good as well. I thought the best thing in the entire show was the Santos Escobar reveal. I thought that was awesome. And even the Adam Cole and Dexter Lumis match was better than I thought it would have been. And even the Breezango vignette was really well done. It wasn't a home run show, but it was pretty good. Same thing with Dynamite. There really wasn't any worst at all, to be honest with you. I mean, I thought Cody and Mark Quinn was, it was alright. Not really main event worthy. Decent match. From NXT, like the Dakota Kai, Casey Catanzaro match wasn't really exciting, but it was necessary in building Kai back up. I don't know if I would put that in the worst category, though. Overall, I thought they were two pretty good shows. Hopefully we get the same quality of shows tonight from Dynamite and NXT. Their next question: best and worst of NXT TakeOver in your house and WWE Backlash. The best from TakeOver, there really wasn't any worst. The 6-woman tag team match wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. So that would probably be the worst/weakest, but everything else was very good. Specifically, the main event, Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, Io Shirai was a great match. Great triple threat. Finn Balor and Damian Priest was probably the best match on the entire show. Great match there. And Keith Lee and Johnny Gargano I also really enjoyed, so a very good show overall. From Backlash, the best was easily Edge and Orton. Was undoubtedly, in my opinion, the match of the night. I don't know about the greatest wrestling match ever, but it was still pretty damn good. Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre I thought had a pretty good match. The worst, the Strowman versus Miz and Morrison match was who gives a shit. Asuka and Nia Jax, who gives a shit. But easily the worst, like the definition of worst, would be Street Profits and the Viking Raiders bullshit that I mentioned earlier. The ninja shit, it felt like it would never end. You cut that garbage out, the show probably would have been 2 hours and 45 minutes, or somewhere around there. That would have been perfect. But with that nonsense, it went over 3 hours, which is fine. It's better than 4 hours, obviously. But still, that's way too much. That shit was garbage. What do you make of the various teases and alliances on Raw this week, including MVP and Apollo, Lana and Natalya, Ric Flair and Randy, blah, blah, blah. The MVP and Apollo one I thought was cool, because there were rumors a couple of months ago that Apollo was going heel. Now, it didn't look that way up until that point, up until we saw MVP recruit Apollo. Then I'm like, oh, this could be intriguing. And then Apollo said no. And then he went on to cheat to beat Shelton Benjamin of all people on Raw later on in the night. Like, why would you need to cheat to beat Shelton Benjamin? That makes no sense. So maybe he is going heel. I don't know if he'll be aligned with MVP, though. I think that'd be cool. I mean, he has like momentum right now. It's not like he's on a losing streak or, he got hurt and he lost all his momentum. He's doing pretty well, so I don't know if I would turn him right now. Shelton and MVP, though, would be pretty cool. I was thinking about that last week, that Shelton with MVP would be awesome. And then they went ahead and teased it on the WWE.com exclusive video. It's on their YouTube channel, too. MVP approached Benjamin after his loss on Raw this week, kind of teasing that he could be joining the ranks soon. So I like that a lot. The Flair and Orton alliance isn't really much of an alliance. I don't see Flair, like, managing Orton by any means at all. I just don't see that happening. I think it was a one and done to kind of protect Christian, giving him the low blow, giving Orton a reason to attack Christian from behind when he wasn't expecting it, whatever. I mean, I guess it was kind of Flair who attacked Christian from behind, but you know what I mean. They also have history and evolution. What I would have done was have Flair do the low blow to Christian, but then stay in the ring to celebrate with Orton, and then Orton RKOs him too, to show that he doesn't give a fuck about anyone. And also end the idea of people thinking that Flair might be managing Randy Orton, maybe 20 years ago in Evolution, but not in 2020. It's not necessary. So, maybe, but I just don't see that happening. I mean, maybe they wanted to focus on Christian getting hurt, so maybe that's why Flair wasn't attacked too. That's what I would have done. As for the Lana Natalya shit, no thank you. No. I know Natalya is good in the ring, and maybe their idea is, maybe we can put Lana with Natalya, and she can kind of hide her in-ring weaknesses. No thank you. Natalya, get her the fuck off my television. She does absolutely nothing for me at all. Oh, she's a good wrestler. Listen, she was a good wrestler in 2008, and she is now, but they have so many more women that are as good, if not better than Natalya, and as a character, she sucks. Lana's even worse. The acting skills from both women are terrible, but the promo ability is bad. Lana, without Rusev, is nothing. I think that's pretty apparent. Like, she's just not good at all. The Bobby Lashley thing was a massive failure. In the ring, she's even worse. I have no less than zero desire to see Natalya and Lana align with each other. What do you make of both Chris Statlander's and Edge's recent injuries? It sucks. Edge just came back. He was out for 9 years, and, he finally got cleared, and then he gets hurt. Thankfully, it was in the match itself, and it wasn't before. They had to call off Edge and Orton. That would have been even worse. I assume we probably wouldn't have seen Edge anyway until at least SummerSlam, so hopefully he's back before then, but it seems like he's going to be gone for a little while, if not the rest of the year, which really sucks. Statlander, it's even worse because that's a big blow to the AEW women's division. Because Britt Baker just got hurt too. At least Baker's still on the show. She has a presence on the program, which is good. Statlander, I guess she could still be on the show. I don't see it though. She might be out for a little while, which sucks. She's very good. They need more women in that division, and losing two of their top two players is not good. So that really sucks. Did you hear about Evolve's financial issues and possibly having to sell everything, quote unquote, to WWE? I did hear about that. It wouldn't surprise me in the current climate. They're not running shows. I was actually at an Evolve show, one of their final shows, on Leap Day, back on February 29th with Alexis. We met Keith Lee, Tommaso Ciampa, Rhea Ripley, which was awesome. The line situation was terrible. They had lines that separated like the boys from the girls. It was fucking bizarre. And maybe for that reason alone, they deserve to go out of business. But in all seriousness, though, it sucks because they are kind of a feeder system to WWE. And I know they've done a lot of shady shit, specifically Gabe Sapolsky in recent years, that I've heard about online from like David Starr and people like that. That's kind of questionable. But still, losing a promotion like that, it's never any good news. It's never good. Like, that's where Austin Theory came from, among others. So that really sucks. Johnny Gargano came from Evolve. So that's a real shame. Timothy Thatcher as well. So hopefully it's not true, but it sounds like it just might be, considering that they're selling a lot of shit and they're not announcing any new shows for any time soon in the foreseeable future. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, when Adam Cole loses the NXT Championship, do you think Undisputed Era gets called up to SmackDown? I was thinking Raw, SmackDown maybe. I was going to say Raw because, they have Paul Heyman. But now that Pritchard's writing both shows, I really am as, I'm not as optimistic anymore. So I don't really know. They had to get called up at some point, obviously. Of the two brands, which brand would need them more? Probably SmackDown. SmackDown, I think, needs the star power. Raw is doing just fine. They could feud with the New Day. They could do Cole and maybe Roman. That could be really cool. Cole and AJ at some point. Cole and Jeff Hardy. Cole and, I don't know about Braun Strowman. But, there's a few other options there than there are on Raw. I guess on Raw you could do him and Drew. Cole and Drew have a lot of unfinished business from NXT a couple of years ago. But yeah, I think Undisputed Era. Of the two, I would have said Raw originally. But given the current state of both rosters, maybe SmackDown. I know SmackDown's getting Matt Riddle, so maybe Raw. I don't really know. I feel like that either way, they got to get called up. As soon as Cole drops that belt, the very next day, like the Bobby Roode treatment, where he lost the belt on Saturday, he showed up on SmackDown on Tuesday. So we could very well see the same thing happen with Undisputed Era as soon as Cole drops that championship in the very near future. Jeremy's second question: do you think last night was a one-off, or are we getting one last run with Christian? You sent that in on Tuesday. No, I think it was a one-off. If he got physical and had like an actual match with Randy, even in like a street fight form, I'm like, okay, then maybe he is cleared. But he took no bumps. Like, the low blow was obviously worked, and even the punt to the head was obviously made to look like it was real, but he's not actually kicking him in the head. I mean, the guy has concussion issues. No way he's actually kicking him in the head. So he didn't take any real bumps. So I assume it was an angle just to give Christian his literal one more match. Like an official one more match, which I appreciate because he didn't really have a one more match 6 years ago. He actually won his final match to date, aside from what we saw on Monday. And then he got concussed in that match, and then we never saw him again in the ring. So I appreciated it. I liked the angle. I thought it was well done. I would love for Christian to come back for one more run. I know Booker T said, I think he's going to come back for Extreme Rules. I don't see it. Maybe, but I don't see it happening. And finally, from at Misdemeanor 6, I just watched the last episode of #AskGSM, and I agree. Ricochet only gets out to appease fans. Cesaro is in the same boat when WWE/Vince allows him to show his stuff. My question this week is, who would you, from any company, like to see Cesaro have a 1-hour Iron Man match against? That's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of answers that could work here. You mentioned Kenny Omega in your subsequent tweet. Kenny Omega would be cool. I don't know if I've ever seen that match. I don't know if that's ever been done before, Cesaro and Kenny Omega, so that would be cool. Cesaro and Daniel Bryan have always worked well together, so maybe Bryan. Rollins would be cool. Have we seen AJ Styles and Cesaro before? I don't know if we have. That would be awesome. Maybe Okada. In another company, Okada and Cesaro. Hey, fucking sign me up, dude. That'd be sick. You said Sami Zayn too, given their chemistry. Yeah, they had a 2 out of 3 falls match in NXT years ago, and it was great. So for the history alone, probably Sami. But if not Sami, then Omega would be cool, because they had a great Iron Man match, Omega and Pac on Dynamite a couple of months ago. Or Bryan, or AJ, or even Rollins, or Gargano. Who knows? There's a lot of answers there. And I think Cesaro would bring the best out of anyone he's in the ring with. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode of #AskGSM, episode 342, here today for June 17th, 2020. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did recording it. If you did, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. If you want to send in a question to the show for future episodes, be sure to do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So until next week, guys, have a great rest of your week. Enjoy NXT Dynamite tonight. Enjoy the 17th of June. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.